My guest is Anna Donaghy, author of this great book, What Are You Thirsty For? If you are watching a clip, there is the book. Anna,
Mm.
welcome. Man, did you get some good press? Congratulations.
Oh yeah, I was very pleased.
Yeah,
Not
not
not all of
surprised.
my own doing, obviously, as you know, these things
No, but it's
take
a
a bit of
very
help from
unusual.
people.
Anybody listening who's had a book out will know that whether you have a published book or a self-published book, actually, it's really hard. And although all publishers say, "Oh, we'll do all your promo for you," I mean, trust me, I've had five publishers, and well, let's put it this way: I've not had the pressure you've had. So big congratulations! It was amazing.
Oh, well,
Well
thank you
done.
very much. From you, I will take that. I'm pleased. Thank
Yeah,
you. Yes.
fantastic. Well done. And it's just so fantastic, isn't it? Just sharing that message that you don't have to wait to get to rock bottom. That's the thing that I can't stop banging on about because you
Yeah.
see so many pieces all the time about, oh, I was drinking 16 bottles of what vodka and I was doing this and I was doing that. And the old me would have glanced at those articles and then just thought, oh, thank God I'm not that bad, and then moved on. And
Yeah.
and you know what you're doing, like just like me, is you're helping people recognize they can, as the strap line of the book is, rethink alcohol and rethink the life they want. And I love it. So let's just take me back and tell me a bit about your story in the past. If anyone hasn't heard you speak before, let's get a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, I think, I echo your message that you don't have to wait until things got bad. Things got quite bad with me. I certainly let drinking take over. I started drinking when I was reasonably young, about 15. It just never really nearly ebbed, it never really went away. I can look back now over each decade of my life and see how it grew.
Mm.
Stealth-like for sure,
Yeah.
never revealing itself with huge drama, lots of mini dramas that seem to follow me around, but never anything, as you would say, coining that phrase, rock bottom. A slow and steady chipping away at myself and the quality of my life for
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
to a point of depletion. And, even that was hard to spot because I pushed myself at work and I played hard and I wrapped all of that up in my identity within the advertising industry.
Which is
Um,
the music industry, of course.
oh,
I was
it's
having
just what
this
one
conversation.
does, darling.
Yeah, exactly. I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, and they were saying to me, "Oh, if you were in the music industry, working in radio and the music industry, it must have been everywhere." And the answer is yes, it actually was, and it was
Mm,
free. And I,
yeah,
I guess it probably was for you too.
well, this
But
is it.
interestingly, the more I chat to clients, the more I realize actually every industry is boozy.
Yeah, well, I think there's crossover, isn't there? I sort of spent, as you would have done in that music industry, in the media, you would have spent time in hospitality, you would have been wining and dining, you would have been being wined and dined, you would have
Totally.
been traveling all over the place and staying in hotels, and you would have had an expense card, you would have been traveling through airport lounges, and it was all there. It was actually, as you say, a perk of the job. It felt free because if I was clocked in on working hours and drinking, then it was expensible.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah.
so it really was.
My God, I know. It's frightening, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so it just mounted up. And for as long as I stayed in that Soho bubble, which I did until, I went on my first maternity leave, you just looked everywhere and everyone else was doing the same. So there wasn't a sense of, well, this is odd, or I'm behaving in a way which is unseemly or unbecoming. I was literally doing what everybody else was doing. And it was only when I retreated to the suburbs to sort of have my children that I realized that wasn't what everyone else was necessarily doing, or I looked a little bit more, over the top in my behavior. For example, I realized I was probably in trouble.
Yeah.
Um,
So what was the turning point for you? When did the crux come?
well, I mean, I have many points like leaving Soho to go to Ealing and have children where I started talking to myself about, you need to do something about this. it was another good 10 or 11 years before I actually did, which I think is
Was
quite a common.
I often talk about the fact that I was waking up at 3 a.m. and with this voice, but actually when I think back, that was happening for at least 5 years.
Oh,
And probably
yeah.
5 years before that, I'd been aware that I need to stop. It just
Yeah.
felt impossible, didn't it? Because, we weren't, I'm guessing neither of us were willing to sort of, we weren't going to go and rock up to a GP. Well, I certainly wasn't.
No, no.
And go down that route. It felt secret because certainly back then there really wasn't anyone talking about the benefits
No.
of
It
putting.
it felt really secret. It felt very seedy. And all of which makes you feel terribly wrong,
Yeah.
terribly isolated, terribly shameful, and therefore terribly locked into the ongoing sort of spiral, the feelings and the negativity that perpetuates the whole thing. If you feel helpless because obvious help isn't at hand, which makes you feel hopeless,
Mm.
which
Yeah,
makes you
you
feel
genuinely
like you
feel like
have
you're
no
the only one.
agency.
Yeah, who's going through this, which is just bizarre because, now when I think back, I realize that a large majority of my friends were probably also waking up at 3 a.m. or
Yeah,
having similar thoughts, but none of us spoke about it because it just felt too shameful.
yeah.
It's fascinating. Yeah. So yeah, sorry, I interrupted you. Back to where you were, where you made the change.
Yeah, well, I was just, but by the time I was in my mid 40s, I was just on my knees. I was so tired and so exhausted. Um, and cracks were showing in a lot of parts of my life. Um, I was kind of clinging on with my fingertips. I had this amazing ability to keep it looking like everything was all together at
Yeah.
work. But
All the balls in the air.
it really wasn't. I had this horrible feeling as well that I was just waiting to be found out.
Yeah.
My relationship with my husband was tense because
Mm.
I was holding a massive secret, and that's never good. I was literally involved in a pastime of sort of secret drinking that he wasn't involved in, which in a marriage
All
is
right. Okay,
not
that's
really good.
the thing, isn't it? The secret drinking is often the thing that makes people sort of think, oh, actually, this isn't right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he didn't really know which version of his wife was going to walk into the room.
Yeah.
Um, the one who'd already had a bottle but was pretending she was just having her first drink,
Yeah.
or the one who was obviously smashed already. So, it got to an untenable situation where I just about had the sort of clarity of thought to be able to say, which is a point echoed in my book, this is not good enough.
Yeah.
It's not good enough. It was a half-life at best.
Yeah. It's
And for
interesting.
someone,
That's a really interesting way of putting it, just to interrupt you there. You know, it, it- in order to be able to notice that it's not good enough, and that it's half life, as it were, you've still got to have a little bit of self-esteem left to know you want
yeah.
something more, haven't you? And alcohol is so insidious because it chips away at that self-esteem and self-love.
Mm,
I've said so
mm,
many times, even for someone like me who was allegedly so steeped in the world of woo woo and spirituality and self love and working as a Hay House author. And there wasn't anything I didn't know about meditation and self love, but I didn't have any for myself because over
yeah,
the years, alcohol chipped away and chipped away and chipped away. So I genuinely believed I wasn't worth it. So
yeah.
it's then from that place, it's actually a gargantuan effort to try to recognize, well, actually, hold on a minute, maybe I am worth it. Maybe I can get my life back. It's
That is
fascinating.
the first that's the first thing I think. It's that first moment when you can say, I deserve
Yeah,
better.
yeah,
And I don't know quite yet what that looks like in terms of what I
uh,
need to do,
yeah,
but I don't want and I don't deserve
yeah.
this, because if this were going to stretch out in front of me for, let's argue another 45 years, what the hell? Do you know
I
what
know,
I mean? It was literally,
I know, I know.
yeah,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
as you talk about in the book, you say in the book, if alcohol came with a warning label, would you still reach for it? Questions like that, do you drink to cope with stress? All of these things. I mean, so many people say, don't they, that if alcohol came onto the market now, it probably wouldn't get a license. I don't know. I think
No.
it's a big money maker. I'm not sure that that's true. But certainly, we were able to just gloss over the harm it causes. I used to look at all the press, studies around, oh, a glass of red wine is good for the heart, and think, oh, thank God for that. I
Mm.
always knew that was true. Now let me go and
Mm.
have a whole bottle of Sauvignon. Of course, I
Yeah.
now realize that no wine is going to be best for the heart. Zero benefits, and
Yeah.
it's
But I
absolutely.
think it's I think what you say is true, in terms of that argument about, if it came out onto the market these days, would it even, pass health and safety? Possibly, possibly not. I think one of the points that I make in that book is, we use it to self-medicate, but if it came with a list of contraindications
Yeah,
like most medications do,
yes,
would
yes,
we
that's
put
really
up with the
true.
downsides? Would
Yeah,
we
that
put
that
up
is
with
true.
all of
Yeah.
those things?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I mean, the thing is, they wouldn't be able to list them all, would they? Because
It's true.
having said that, there are some
Yeah.
medications that that
Yeah.
that you open up the packet and the list is, you hold
Yeah.
up the list of all the things,
Exactly. With
and
alcohol, it would be
at the
literally
bottom it says
temporarily,
may cause
yeah,
death. And
temporarily raises mood, but has about
yeah,
40
no,
fallouts
exactly.
associated with
And
it.
all the cancer and all the illnesses and the fact that it makes you irritable and and
Yeah.
on and on. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Um,
Yeah.
what were the main? Do you remember for you? Just remind me how long you've been sober now.
About just over 5 years.
Right. And do you remember the main benefits for you? Or was that 2020 then?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. Okay. So you had all the other complications
And
going on.
all the other stuff going on as
What
well.
were the benefits for you then? What was the do you remember the kind of, because sometimes people say to me, what was the biggest thing, that
Mm,
you
mm.
found from quitting? And I mean I find it really difficult because there's so many things. If I could bottle it all, I would I'd literally be a multimillionaire.
I know, I know. Um, I think that probably the one that, it is hard to choose one, but if I could choose one that has gone on to have so much impact on others, it would be that reduced level of anxiety and improved sleep, because of course they have massive ripple effects
Totally.
throughout the rest of your life. So, yes, yes, energy, yes, more time, yes, more clarity, but all of those come from being able to see clearly and having better sleep. So I think that would be the sort of the anchor from which so many other things just then ripple out.
Yeah.
Um, including the other massive one, which is that improved sense of self,
Yeah.
a much better relationship with myself. Again, it's another ripple effect, isn't it, that
Totally.
permeates every
Totally.
relationship you have through life and what you
Yeah.
believe you're even capable of.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you have children. I think, God, if only someone had told me, when my kids were young, this is the best parenting hack ever. It's not necessarily going to behave. It's not going to mean that you're going to find all of parenting a breeze, but when you're not on the back foot, that's huge.
That's
That is,
huge.
and God, I think back now to the way I would let parenting issues, which I now know are everyone's issue. You think you're the only one who's got a kid with buttons, don't you? But I remember, oh my God, I tried everything, every parenting course, every book, every and actually all I needed to do was become more authentic in who I was. And from that
Yeah.
place, you can set your boundaries, you can do the right thing, you can say no when you need to, you can know that you're in the right, know that you're bigger than them, and still be
Yes.
kind and empathetic, and on and on and on and on, and all the things around, being a good parent. But you can't do it when you're drinking, because it's almost like there's a little voice that says, well, who are you to try to tell them X and Y? And also that
100%.
that awful expression that people sometimes say, oh, it's the drink talking. I
Yeah. You
it's
feel utterly undermined by
kind of
yourself.
terrible, terrible
Yeah,
thing.
I would agree with that, Janie. Utterly, you feel undermined by yourself. You feel like you're on very shaky ground. You're not even really sure whether that intuition you're listening to is a maternal instinct or, what voice that is. You doubt yourself. You feel fallible.
Yeah.
Um, it's wretched. It really is. And also, at various stage of parenting, when I was a new mum, I put down my tiredness and anxiety to being a new mum. And then when I was in, a mother of teens, I put it down to, oh, it's just another life stage and tiredness, etc., etc. And I put so much down to my role as a mum and my life stage. When, as you say, just if I'd just taken alcohol out of the equation, a lot of the issues that I was experiencing at those stages in life would have been at least eased, if not removed.
Definitely, definitely. In your book, I'm just flicking through it, and you tell
Mm.
about the chapter called "How to Be a Man."
Oh yeah,
Tell me about
yeah.
that.
So there's that section is part of a sort of a conversation within the book about how we bury our feelings, um, and how alcohol is very much part of our emotional management system. I refer to it in the book as our CEO, the sort of the chief emotions officer. Um, and we have a cultural predisposition within this country for sort of stiff upper lip,
Mm,
um, men and women, whether it comes from sort of boarding school culture or sort of Victorian times, proprietary, etc. There is a sense that we don't emote loudly and we don't emote long. We deal with our problems, we are efficient with our issues, and we don't necessarily bring them out into the public. And all it really does is partly explain a level of emotional illiteracy that we carry around through no fault of our own, none at all.
yeah,
And this is problematic. It's problematic because enter alcohol. Emotions will do what emotions will do, which is try and bubble up, and alcohol does what it temporarily can do, which is try and contain them.
yes,
So it becomes a containment tool, and this I observe within the book, through conversations I've had on the podcast as well, becomes particularly sad and sometimes problematic with men,
mm.
for whom there is a big emotional disconnect. There's a real challenge with guys
There
who
is,
walk
yeah.
around with these stereotypes.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and that section of the book relates very much to a conversation that I had with a mutual friend,
yeah,
Alex Clapp rather, who basically, yeah, talks about the fact that he was, he, like lots of lads in this country, are sort of brought up with this idea that we don't, men don't cry.
yes, exactly, exactly that. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's
and
fascinating.
this is
Yeah,
where alcohol becomes a very powerful tool,
yeah.
for guys.
Yeah, we've had a lot of guys speak about this in the Sober Club. In fact, one of the coaches who trained with me, Tony, runs a webinar now, sober uh, guys having a conversation,
Yeah,
basically. It's just great, just to no pressure, just
mm,
just chat about sobriety, literally that, which just makes it a bit more open. We just need to bring it out into the open, really, don't we? All of this, actually. And
absolutely.
the other one of the things you talk about in the book, stunted emotional growth. That's such an interesting one, isn't it? When we think about the fact that many of us literally we sort of we kind of, in terms of our resilience and our emotional maturity, it was literally when we started drinking. And then after that, all the big stuff in our life was through the lens of alcohol. When I
Mm,
look back, oh my God, everything, everything, my
yeah,
wedding, my holidays, my Christmases, my everything was through the lens of alcohol. So,
yeah.
well, and funerals and grief and it's not just good stuff. But we use it for everything, don't we? So of course we don't know how to cope with our emotions when we don't have that crutch.
And we don't know how to listen to them.
Mm.
We, and because we this big generalization, but obviously, if we don't listen to something, we don't get practice with feeling our emotions,
Yeah.
then we start to fear them because they become, unfamiliar to us.
Yeah.
And within the book, it's a slightly sort of glib analogy, but I talk about emotions as signals, and it's like a postal service. They're looking for a delivery, they're looking to kind of land, but when we drink, we're literally intercepting these messages, intercepting these emotions. They're not landing where they need to land. They're being suppressed or numbed, which means we don't get proficient at managing them, and we
Yeah.
therefore fear them. And so the vicious sort of circle continues. And I think it's a big statement, but I think it's practically impossible to grow as an individual, certainly emotionally, if you're a heavy drinker.
Mm.
And if we just keep intercepting these messages instead of listening to them.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I
and
agree, and it really is. It's why we behave so badly, isn't it? Because we're we're not grown up, as it were.
Yeah, well, it's
We're
like we
not
can, yeah,
mature.
absolutely. And it's like we can wake up one day and feel completely divorced from ourselves and adrift and unanchored and not really sure, what are your values? I don't know, or how have you ended up in this job? I don't know. It's just, you just become slightly adrift because you're not listening to the inner self, the inner world.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's really
and
true.
that's really sad. And I think, getting that agency back, getting that trust, not just listening to the messages, but trusting that you are able to manage them, like you mentioned, the grief or, the upset, the anger, that they can't hurt you. They're not
Yeah.
there to be fixed. They're
No.
just there to be experienced.
Yeah. One of my podcast guests many years ago, and I refer to her an awful lot, was Carla McLaren, who wrote a book called Embracing Anxiety. And she does a huge amount around the language of emotions. And
Right.
just remember her sort of phrase was, we need to remind ourselves all emotions are welcome. Now, of course, we don't feel like that because we don't really want to welcome in guilt and shame and anger. We'd really rather not. But actually, when there's a time and a place for it, accept it, work out what it's trying to teach you, and you'll
Yeah.
move really quickly. This too shall pass. Because
Yes.
human to have all of those emotions, but we don't allow it with children. If a child's upset, we just say, oh dear, poor you, have a sweet, rather than
Yeah.
actually allowing the child to experience that emotion and recognize what it is and go through it, come out the other side.
And that
That's how
is resilience. That is resilience. It's, people sometimes say, oh, resilience is about being strong, or resilience is about, and that's what I think resilience is about, knowing that whatever emotion is going to come your way, you can cope with it.
no,
It's not
absolutely.
it's not denying the emotion, it's just not feeling vulnerable
Yeah,
or weak in
yeah,
it, when confronted with it, that you'll be
yeah.
okay and that you're enough to deal with it.
Totally. You also talk in the book about the happiness myth, and yeah, I love the fact that you include this because there's this whole thing, isn't there? Oh, I'll do it when I'll be happy when the kids have left home, when this
Hmm.
such a big part of this, isn't it? This sort of chasing happiness.
Very much. And talk about that from personal experience. Kind of I've done it my whole life, Janie. I'd like to think I'm not doing it now, but I do have to check sometimes. It's always healthy, isn't it, just to sort of check in. I fell foul of so many of those little minefields that you can delay happiness. Think you'll be happy when you've lost those pounds, or got that job, or met that guy, or whatever it might be. And
Yeah,
it's that chase, 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 instead of either just the gratitude or the presence to accept that you are where you are,
yeah,
and it's good, And I think it's also puts us on that treadmill of exhausting chasing. That's very much what was the sort of the undoing of me. It was the relentless chasing, often towards standards that I had set myself. So
yeah.
it wasn't like anyone was doing it to me.
No,
I was setting these standards, I was setting these goals, I was setting these I'll be happy wins. And then when they weren't happening, I was hugely disappointed in something that I was actually in control of recalibrating. I was able to, I could or should have been able to see that I was literally punishing myself
Mm.
on a daily basis. And there's definitely parts of the book where I point out that in modern life, for various reasons, a lot to do with cultural, social norms, we fall into these habits of either I'll be happy when, or just as toxic, the comparisons
Yeah. Yeah.
that we draw
Oh,
with
I'm
other
never be good
people.
enough. I can't do that. Yeah.
Anything that basically has you feeling not enough, that you
Yeah.
either haven't got enough or you are not enough, or you are in some way, shape, or form lacking what others might have, or or what you would truly like.
Yeah.
Um, because it's a gap filler. The alcohol it fills the gaps. It fills gaps in our longing, whether we want to feel more connected or more successful, it's there to fill that gap. And the
Mm.
more we present ourselves or even create those gaps for ourselves, the more role it's going to have.
Yeah, totally. So what do you hope people will get from the book? What's the main intention?
I really, really wanted to offer something to people before crisis,
Yeah.
before there was a sense of, oh crap, now what do I do? When there was still a real place for curiosity
Yeah.
and compassion-led curiosity that just says, we live in a booze-soaked world, and as much as I wish we didn't, we do at the moment. Many of us drink, most of us don't fall into, problematic drinking as such, but it doesn't mean to say that it isn't
Problem.
getting in the way. It isn't a problem. It's like
Absolutely.
there are lots of little P's, even if it's like you've never got quite enough money, or
Yeah.
your relationship, you keep having arguments and things keep blowing up. There's little problems as well as just big drinking problems. And I just wanted to put something in front of people that says, what if?
Mm,
What
mm.
if we didn't drink as much? What if we had different ways of managing our emotions? What if we took a little bit of an audit of our life and said, are you the person you want to be, doing what you dreamt of doing? Are you, with absolute radical candor, is life good enough?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if it's not, then why not
Owe it
question
to
whether
yourself. Yeah,
alcohol? Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Because it could you, and by the way, the answer could be, well, actually, it's bloody good, thank you very much,
Yeah.
Anne. And it's like, good. But it could be great.
Yeah, no, I love that, and it's something I say a lot because people will sort of sometimes say to me, "Oh, I know that you run the sober club and everything, and oh, sorry, is it a problem if I have a drink in front of you?" I really
Not
don't.
for me.
I don't care, Jack, if you have a drink. I would never say, if somebody says, "I'm really happy,"
Yeah,
with out and drinking, well, fine. And there are people who kind of you ask them that question, they go, "Well, I have half a shandy in the summer, and fine, crack on if you're
yeah,
happy." It's not about the amount of the amount of alcohol. It's about whether or whether that little voice pops up. It's the little voice, isn't it, really? Because of
yeah.
course, what
It
you say
is.
in front
It's
of other
it's the
people,
little
the little
the
voice
little
says,
voice. But I
actually,
think you've
I
you've you've talked about this a lot, but I mean, we have a cultural question around, is my drinking bad enough? Because we have these black and white sort of stereotypes.
yeah,
And as long as culturally we continue to ask those questions, we are culturally missing the bigger question,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
life good enough? It's not, is your drinking bad enough? Is your life good enough?
yeah.
That is the
That's
question we should be asking.
right. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for chatting to us. It's really great to have you on the pod. What are you thirsty for? Rethinking alcohol and the life you want. Thank you, Anna Donaghy. I really appreciate it, and lots of success. And well, you'll have masses, all that press. It's fantastic. Well done you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on. It's been super. Thank you.